The door swung open. Wrong floor. Wrong apartment. Wrong everything. She was standing there in a silk robe, hair down, like she'd been expecting someone. She hadn't been expecting me.
You again.
She looked at me for a long moment. Then she stepped aside, and I walked in. Chapter 1. The Move. 8 years in the same apartment does something to you. You stop thinking about where you're going. Your body just knows. The elevator button, the hallway turn, the exact number of steps from the door to the kitchen. It becomes muscle memory, automatic. The kind of thing you don't realize you're doing until you're doing it somewhere new and the muscle memory doesn't match anymore. I moved to the 9th floor in April. Better unit, better lease terms, same building. Straightforward upgrade on paper. In practice, 8 years of habit kept pulling me back to the 8th floor like a magnet. I caught myself twice in the first week, standing in front of apartment 805 with my key out before I registered that nothing about it was mine anymore. The third time, I didn't catch myself in time. I'd just gotten home from work, phone in hand, head somewhere else entirely. Stepped off the elevator, walked to what my body remembered as my door. Started punching in the code. The door opened. Not my code, not my door. A woman stood in the frame, mid-30s, dark hair pulled loosely back, a fitted wrap dress that suggested she'd been home for a while. She looked at me with an expression that was more curious than alarmed.
Can I help you?
I'm so sorry. I just moved in upstairs. I keep hitting the wrong floor. This used to be my... I gestured uselessly at the doorframe. I'm really sorry.
It's fine. She leaned against the frame slightly. It happens. You're the one from 905?
Yeah, Jake. I'm really sorry.
Rachel.
She smiled, small, unhurried.
Try not to make a habit of it.
She closed the door. I stood in the hallway for a second longer than necessary, then found the elevator and pressed 9. I thought about that smile the whole ride up. Chapter 2. The Wrong Night. 3 weeks later, the project from hell finally ended. My team went out to celebrate. Steakhouse, good whiskey, the kind of dinner that starts at 7 and somehow becomes 11 without anyone noticing. Then someone suggested karaoke, and suddenly we were singing badly into microphones with Budweiser in hand, and the night kept going the way those nights do. By the time I got in the elevator, I was significantly past the point of reliable decision-making. I pressed a floor, walked down the hall, punched in my code. The door opened. For a half second I thought, finally, the habit is breaking. I'm getting it right. Then I looked up. Rachel was standing in the kitchen doorway, wearing a thin strapped camisole and shorts, holding a glass of water. The apartment behind her was softly lit and very quiet. A framed photo on the shelf, her and a man I didn't recognize, somewhere sunny. Her husband.
You have got to be kidding me.
I looked at the door, then back at her. I did it again.
You're drunk.
A little.
More than a little. She set her glass down slowly. You typed the right code, though. How do you know my code?
I don't. I typed mine. She stared at me. Then she looked at the keypad. Thought about it for a second.
Your old code and my current code are the same.
We both processed that for a moment. I should go, I said.
You can barely stand up straight.
I'm fine.
You're not fine. You're going to go upstairs, fall asleep on your kitchen floor, and feel terrible about it tomorrow.
She picked up her water glass again.
My husband's been on a freight run since Monday. He won't be back until Thursday. You can sleep on the couch.
Rachel.
I'm not asking. Sit down before you fall down.
I sat down. She brought water. Then a glass of something that wasn't water, but helped anyway. She sat across from me and we talked. Really talked. The way you do late at night when the usual filters are down and everything comes out more honest than intended. She talked about the apartment, about how quiet it got when Mark was on a long run, about how she'd lived in this building for 4 years and still didn't know most of her neighbors' names.
And then you keep showing up at my door, she said, which is either the universe being funny or you being bad at elevators.
Genuinely just bad at elevators.
Sure, she smiled, that same unhurried smile from the hallway.
The apartment was very quiet. She was wearing a thin camisole in soft lighting, and her husband's photo was on the shelf, and I was considerably less sober than I should have been for any of this.
You look like you're trying very hard to be appropriate right now.
I am.
That's considerate of you. She set her glass down, met my eyes directly. You don't have to be.
The room went very still. Whatever I'd been about to say didn't happen. That night, nothing about what followed was appropriate, and neither of us pretended otherwise. Afterward, the apartment was quieter than before. The city hummed somewhere outside. Her husband's photo caught the light from the kitchen.
I haven't felt like that in a long time.
She said quietly, to the ceiling more than to me.
Mark he's away so much, and when he's here, he's tired. I forgot what it felt like to actually feel something.
Rachel.
Don't apologize, please. I'm not sorry. I just wanted you to know. That wasn't nothing. For me.
I didn't sleep much, but I stayed until morning. Chapter 3. The morning after. She made soup. Proper soup. The kind that takes time, with ingredients she clearly had on hand because she cooked like this regularly. I sat at her kitchen table in yesterday's clothes and ate while her husband's photo watched from the shelf and the morning sun came through the window like nothing unusual had happened.
You don't have to look so guilty, she said, sitting across from me with her coffee. Nobody knows anything.
I know.
And I'm fine. I'm better than fine, honestly.
She wrapped both hands around her mug.
Mark leaves for 2 weeks next month. Longer runs are getting more frequent. I've gotten very good at being alone in this apartment.
She said it simply, without self-pity, just as a fact. I finished the soup, thanked her, and went upstairs to my own apartment, where I stood in the shower for a long time thinking about the photo on her shelf and the way she'd said she forgot what it felt like to actually feel something. Chapter 4. Avoidance. For the next 3 weeks, I became an expert at timing. I knew when Rachel usually took the trash down. I knew her approximate schedule based on the sounds that filtered through the floor, her morning routine, her afternoon movements, the particular quiet that meant she'd gone out. I took the stairs when I could, waited an extra beat before pressing the elevator button to make sure I wasn't going to walk in behind her. It was working, mostly. Then one evening, coming home from work, the elevator opened on 8. Rachel stepped in. She looked at me, looked at the way I was standing, slightly too straight, slightly too studied.
You've been avoiding me.
I've been busy.
You've been avoiding me. She pressed the button for her floor without looking away. I'm not going to make things weird, Jake. That's not what I want.
What do you want? The elevator was very small.
I made kalbi tonight. Too much for one person, as usual. You could come down and eat, and we could just have dinner, like neighbors. A pause. That's all I'm suggesting.
The elevator stopped at 8. The doors opened. She stepped out and looked back.
Just dinner.
She said.
Though if you happened to stay a little longer, I wouldn't complain.
The doors started to close. I put my hand out to stop them. Chapter 5. Kalbi night. The galbi was extraordinary. She cooked the way people do when they've spent years feeding someone who's rarely home. Too much, too carefully, with the specific attention of someone who's learned to fill time with effort. We ate at her kitchen table, talked easily, the way we had that first night, without the alcohol removing filters. Just two people who had somehow skipped several conversational stages and arrived somewhere more honest than most neighbors ever get. Mark's photo was still on the shelf. Neither of us mentioned it. After dinner, she poured whiskey and we moved to the couch, and the evening took the same shape as the first one, but more deliberately, without the excuse of alcohol, without the pretense of accident.
This is probably a terrible idea, she said at one point.
Almost certainly.
Mark's home Thursday.
It's Tuesday.
Yes,
She looked at me.
it is.
That night was different from the first. The first had been impulsive, unplanned, the kind of thing you could almost attribute to circumstance. This was a choice, made clearly by both of us, with full awareness of everything it meant. Afterward, she lay beside me and said,
Whatever this is, I know it's not simple. But I want you to know that what happens in this apartment actually means something to me. You make me feel things Mark stopped making me feel a long time ago. I needed to say that out loud.
I didn't answer right away, but I reached over and turned off the kitchen light, and stayed until Wednesday morning. Chapter 6. Thursday. I was in my apartment when I heard it. A car in the parking structure below, the specific sound of an engine I'd unconsciously learned over the past weeks. Mark's truck, earlier than expected. My phone buzzed.
He's early. You need to go. Now.
I was already moving. The problem was the elevator. Too slow, too visible, too much risk of the doors opening directly in front of him. I took the stairs, one floor up, and made it to my apartment with my heart slamming against my ribs, just as I heard the elevator ding on 8 below me. I stood in my kitchen, completely still, listening to the floor. Footsteps. A door. Mark's voice muffled through the ceiling. Something casual, a greeting. Rachel's voice, smooth and warm, saying welcome home. I stood there for a long time. Then I went to my couch and sat down and looked at my own walls for a while. Downstairs, I could hear the ordinary sounds of a marriage resuming its routine. Cabinets opening, the television, laughter at something. My phone buzzed one more time.
That was close. I'm sorry. Are you okay?
I looked at the message. Typed back, "Fine, go be with your husband." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared.
Thursday next week, he leaves again. 2 weeks this time.
I set the phone face down on the cushion. Looked at the ceiling. Thought about galbi and whiskey, and a photo on a shelf, and a woman who said she'd forgotten what it felt like to actually feel something. Then I picked the phone back up. I'll bring the whiskey. That's where this story ends. Thank you for listening. If this one stayed with you, subscribe, leave a like, and turn on notifications. See you in the next one.